You are sitting in row 32E on a transatlantic flight. Severe turbulence is violently shaking your plastic tray table, and your phone battery icon just flashed red with a terrifying 5% warning.
Losing power in a pressurized metal tube triggers a highly personal, universal panic.
We anchor our entire lives to these glowing rectangles, relying on them for our digital boarding passes, our emergency payments, our entertainment, and, our only actual connection to the outside world.
Watching that tiny battery meter tick down towards zero feels like watching your own personal life support system fail in real time.
Global smartphone manufacturers currently operate with that exact same level of terrified panic on a corporate scale, trying to secure their own survival in a turbulent global economy.
Packing 8,000 milliamp hours into a consumer smartphone breaks every established rule of modern mobile design philosophy.
Our mission for this deep dive involves tearing through a massive stack of supply chain manifests and leaked industry memos regarding the May 7, 2026 India launch of the OnePlus Nord CE6 and Nord CE6 Lite.
Manufacturers spent the past decade consistently prioritizing millimeter-thin chassis designs over actual daily usability.
We are tracking a bizarre industry state where desperate companies produce hardware that seems completely financially unviable, right as they quietly pack their bags to flee Western markets entirely.
Pushing past traditional lithium-ion limitations requires engineering high silicon anodes to prevent the internal cells from physically swelling outward and shattering the glass back panel under immense pressure.
Delivering 2.5 days of continuous use on a single full charge fundamentally changes the psychological relationship a person has with their technology.
You literally stop plugging your device into the wall every single night out of deeply ingrained habit.
Your phone basically operates as an entirely independent power grid,
Outputting 27 watts of power externally.
which turns you into the mandatory blood donor of your entire social circle. You actively drain your own lifeblood to save an iPhone user who forgot their proprietary charging cable at home.
Transferring that level of aggressive wattage generates immense internal heat across the motherboard.
They plug a wire directly into your phone at a coffee shop, and your 2.5-day battery just gets mercilessly sacrificed to keep their green bubble group chats alive.
The lithium-ion cells degrade rapidly, losing their maximum capacity permanently if that thermal energy remains trapped inside the casing.
Being the friend with the biggest battery means you permanently become portable infrastructure for people who bought prettier, weaker devices.
The Nord CE6 utilizes the Qualcomm Snapdragon 7's Gen 4 system on a chip specifically to monitor and handle that heavy thermal load.
Rerouting the electrical current safely while maintaining normal background tasks prevents catastrophic hardware failure, I assume.
Processing 1,000 microtouches per minute under a heavy torrential downpour requires dedicated algorithms to aggressively filter out ghost interference.
OnePlus pairing that specific Snapdragon processor with a mysterious internal component they call the touch reflex chip feels heavily suspicious.
Differentiating the electrical conductivity of a massive raindrop from the intentional swipe of a human thumb devours standard computational cycles.
Slapping a sci-fi marketing name onto basic hardware functions distracts consumers from noticing the mid-range silicon running the show.
The 8,000 milliamp hour cell provides the sheer thermal headroom to run constant background touch calculations.
Every modern piece of glass registers a human finger tap, so calling it a touch reflex chip sounds like a corporate rebranding of a technology we perfected a decade ago.
Offloading those calculations to a dedicated secondary chip prevents the primary processor from forcibly throttling its speeds during intensive gaming sessions.
You examine the external durability and the display specifications, and a jarring contrast emerges against the expected price tag.
Pushing a screen to refresh 144 times every single second requires a continuous heavy stream of electrical power.
The standard CE6 packs a 1.5K resolution AMOLED display, running at a blistering 144 Hz refresh rate, hitting 1800 nits of peak brightness.
Hitting 1800 nits allows the display to remain completely legible under direct, blinding sunlight without washing out the colors.
The previous generation Nord CE5 commanded around $267, while the standard Nord 6 sits at $416.
AMOLED technology achieves this intense peak brightness by illuminating individual organic light-emitting diodes directly. A traditional liquid crystal panel relies on a global backlight instead.
We fully expect this newly armored CE6 to land squarely in that sub-$300 budget territory, making those premium visual features wildly aggressive.
High brightness levels combined with a massive refresh rate historically decimate battery life before the afternoon commute even begins.
Securing a 1.5K AMOLED panel for a sub-$300 device exposes a massive shift in global component manufacturing.
Premium smartphone brands spent years heavily subsidizing the creation of advanced display fabrication plants.
Yield rates for high refresh rate AMOLED panels eventually skyrocketed, causing the production cost of an individual unit to plummet.
OnePlus exploits that saturated component market by purchasing premium displays at a fraction of their original cost.
Dropping premium displays into budget phones makes sense, sure, but the durability ratings on this spec sheet completely lose touch with our daily reality.
Sealing a mobile chassis against high-temperature water at extreme pressure forces the manufacturing tolerances to become microscopic.
This sub-$300 device carries an IP66, an IP68, an IP69, and an IP69K rating, alongside a MIL-STD A10H military durability specification.
Tighter seams around the glass and reinforced internal rubber gaskets inherently distribute kinetic force more efficiently across the entire aluminum frame.
We are looking at a square-shaped rear camera module on a phone available in fresh blue or pitch black.
Surviving the municipal fire hose operates strictly as an engineering byproduct of building a frame rigid enough to survive blunt impact.
The marketing presents a colorful fashion accessory armored like a military transport vehicle. Explain to me why a budget smartphone needs an IP69K rating to survive a direct blast from a municipal fire hose or an industrial high-temperature pressure washer.
The water pressure testing acts as a verifiable metric, proving the structural integrity remains flawless under immense physical stress.
Our daily user reality never involves battling 80-degree Celsius water jets in a combat zone. Our reality involves the sickening crunch of dropping a phone face down on a bathroom tile while rushing to brush our teeth before work.
Manufacturers use extreme water resistance to guarantee everyday drop survivability.
Consumers need shatter resistance for a 3-foot drop from a countertop, and they need basic scratch immunity for sharing a pocket with car keys. Nobody requires immunity to heavy industrial steam cleaning equipment.
Appending the word light to a product name historically meant suffering through a creaky plastic shell and panicking over a battery that died before lunch.
We should shift focus over to the Nord CE6 Lite, where the smartphone industry's historical definition of the word light undergoes a radical, confusing translation in this particular generation.
The color options shift aggressively to vivid mint and hyper black.
The CE6 Lite features a vertical rear camera bump, abandoning the square module found on the standard CE6.
That specific battery capacity completely rivals the absolute best premium flagships on the market today.
It miraculously retains the exact same 144 Hz display technology, but calling any device light when it packs a colossal 7,000 milliamp-hour battery feels like pure, deliberate irony.
This supposedly downgraded budget phone offers up to 2 days of life on a single charge.
For context, the highly expensive top-tier flagship OnePlus 15 utilizes a 7,300 milliamp-hour battery.
Modifying the internal clock architecture on a Dimensity silicon die alters how the prime computing cores handle sustained computational loads.
The branding makes zero logical sense for the consumer, and the internal processor shift from the Snapdragon to the MediaTek Dimensity 7400 Apex variant also demands serious scrutiny.
The Apex designation signifies a heavily modified thermal threshold, delaying the moment the processor forcibly throttles its performance to prevent internal components from melting.
Appending the word Apex to a mid-range silicon chip sounds like another meaningless marketing suffix designed to trick buyers into believing their budget phone processes data incredibly fast.
Microscopic variances in the manufacturing process dictate how efficiently each processor handles electricity.
Binning silicon directly addresses sustained heat generation inside tight mobile enclosures, I assume.
MediaTek isolates the most thermally efficient units from the assembly line and brands them with the Apex designation.
A 7,000 milliamp-hour battery operates as a massive physical thermal sink, kind of absorbing and dissipating the heat generated by those prime cores.
Operating at maximum clock speeds generates massive thermal output, meaning a standard processor reaches a critical temperature threshold rapidly.
You dig into the raw specifications of both these devices, and they force a brutal confrontation with the corporate reality surrounding BKK Electronics and OnePlus.
The Apex processor maintains peak computational output for drastically longer intervals because the sheer physical mass of the giant battery pulls the thermal load completely away from the silicon die. MediaTek tunes this specific silicon purely for devices carrying massive physical thermal mass.
These powerhouse budget phones, boasting massive batteries and military-grade armor, remain entirely isolated to the Indian market.
Defending a mature, heavily saturated market against entrenched legacy competitors demands billions in sustained marketing capital.
The future of OnePlus in non-Asian markets appears incredibly unstable based on internal corporate movements.
The European smartphone market operates heavily on carrier subsidies and intense generational brand loyalty to a few massive tech giants.
Multiple industry reports confirm high-level employees are rapidly abandoning the company in the United Kingdom and across Europe.
Consumers walk into a London carrier store and receive an expensive premium flagship device bundled into their monthly cellular contract.
Official statements claim the company is merely evaluating its regional roadmap and product strategy.
Attempting to sell an IP69K rated phone directly to consumers for $300 cannibalizes the tight profit margins desperately needed to sustain competitive advertising campaigns across European cities.
Building indestructible phones with week-long batteries requires massive investment. Yet their broader corporate strategy involves actively retreating from the global stage.
Rumors circulating through the supply chain indicate OnePlus plans to shut down operations in those Western regions completely.
This hardware rollout represents a technological white flag in Europe and an aggressive, defensive fortress strategy in Asia.
Establishing total dominance in India requires overwhelming the local competition with undeniable, aggressive hardware value.
The Indian consumer market fiercely rewards aggressive pricing and massive spec sheets above historical brand legacy.
They build a defensive fortress in a rapidly expanding market where sheer hardware volume dictates long-term corporate survival.
The disparity between what different geographical regions receive feels staggering when you compare the spec sheets side by side.
They prioritize hardware capability over carrier bundles, fracturing the global smartphone landscape into two completely distinct hardware realities isolates consumers based purely on their geographical coordinates.
Emerging markets receive $300 smartphones equipped with 8,000 mAh batteries and 144 Hz premium displays wrapped in military-grade durability testing. You find consumers in premium Western markets paying triple that price for vastly inferior hardware purely for the sake of an engraved brand logo. Goodbye.